We'd like to welcome you to our current event and weekly Bible study for 9/21/08, and we'll be starting a new teaching today on the subject of the word pharmakia, sorcery and witchcraft. And in essence, we're going to be discussing the foundational meaning of the words pharmacy, pharmacist, and pharmaceutical. Now, we're going to take this into a study on the whole medical profession, really the pharmaceutical industry, I should say. We're going to look at the roots of the pharmaceutical industry, because if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? According to Psalm 11, verse 3, and this is what we're going to be endeavoring to do today. Now, pharmakia is actually a form of the Greek root word, which is where we get our English words pharmacy, pharmacist, and pharmaceutical. Okay? The word pharmakia. In the New Testament, pharmakia carries it with it the idea of sorcery, occultism, and black magic. It is in this sense that Paul used this exact term in Galatians 5:20 as the word witchcraft, where we read in the works of the flesh in Galatians 5:20, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, various emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies. So the word pharmakia is actually translated into the word witchcraft in Galatians 5:20. Strong's definition of pharmakia is that, number one, several definitions: the use or administering of drugs. Number two, poisoning. 3, sorcery or magical arts, often found in connection with idolatry and fostered by it. 4, the deceptions and seductions of idolatry. This is the whole context of the word pharmakia. In Vine's expository dictionary, it's listed as the word for sorcery, or pharmacy is what they're saying. English pharmacy is really the word for sorcery. So, and then it's primarily signified the use of medicine, drugs, spells, poisoning, sorcery. It's used in Galatians 5:20. It's also used in Revelation 9:21, 18:23, Exodus 7:11 and 22, Exodus 8:7 and 18, Isaiah 47:9 and 12. We're going to be looking at some of those verses, because we want to look exactly where is pharmakia translated in the Bible. Okay, it's also used in sorcery. The use of drugs, whether simple or potent, was generally accompanied by incantations and appeals to occult powers, with the provision of various charms, amulets, etc. Now, again, where the Bible talks about fleeing all appearance of evil, well, you want to take a pretty good look at this, because there's a lot of evil connected with the word pharmakia. Okay, pharmakia is also used as the word for sorcery in this verse. Acts 8:9. But there was a certain man called Simon, which before time in the same city used sorcery, and bewitched the people of Samaria, giving out that himself was some great one. Okay, now, that's Acts 8:9. The word for sorcery there is translated from the word pharmakia. Okay, so Simon, the wizard, he was using sorcery. Now, again, the sorcery probably encompassed the use of mind-altering drugs. Okay, that was probably one of the tenets of the witchcraft he was using. It's no different than it is today. The same thing. It's well known that within witchcraft, one of the main ways that you can open yourself up to the demonic realm is through the use of mind-altering drugs or substances, because you're opening doorways. Okay, the demons can come in easier. Your inhibitions go down. You will do things that you normally wouldn't do under the influence of mind-altering drugs, right? Well, that's exactly the reason they're so promoted and used within witchcraft. And then in Revelation 9:21 it says, "Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts." So sorceries, again, here is translated in Revelation 9:21 from the word pharmakia. And then we go to Revelation 18:23. Speaking of the end-time whorish satanic city of Babylon, we read, "In the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall no more be heard at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth. For by thy sorceries," pharmakia, "were all nations deceived." Now, this is one of the main things that the Bible talks about in the end times, that by the sorceries of the great whore city of Babylon were all nations deceived. And in that particular vein, the word sorcery is translated from the word pharmakia. Now, every time the word witchcraft is translated in the Bible, it's not always pharmakia. It's not always translated from that root word. But in these instances, it was. It used the word pharmakia. And I believe it did so for a reason. That's an interesting point to understand there. What is pharmakia connected with? The administering of drugs, poisoning, sorcery, magical arts, deception, idolatry. But this is a big deal. Exodus 7, 11, and 12 says, Then Pharaoh, also called the wise men, and the sorcerers, which is translated from pharmakia, the sorcerers. Now the magicians of Egypt, they did also in like manner with their enchantments. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. Okay, so again, that's just some background there on this particular word that we can build as a foundation on this teaching. This is an excerpt from an article entitled Church Witchcraft, and goes on to say, the Bible calls witchcraft the spirit of rebellion. But another excellent definition is whatever attempts to exert an unnatural degree or type of influence or control over a person. Consider, for instance, that drugs and alcohol are often used in witchcraft rites. If a driver is drunk or high and the police catches him, what is he charged with? Driving under the influence. Addicts to drugs and alcohol are often said that they are under the control of them. Even in these cartoonish depictions of witches, what are they seen doing? Casting spells to alter someone's natural desired state, or to get someone to act in a manner against their own wishes, but in accordance with the wishes of the witch. Okay, these are just things to go over. Now remember, the Bible says for rebellion as is the sin of witchcraft. Okay, so again, this pharmakia and the whole thing is tied in with witchcraft, and rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. And then it goes on to say, in any event, things like hypnosis and mind control are actual forms of witchcraft. And yes, that includes a lot of what is currently called psychology or psychiatry. Well, you know, psychiatry has the highest suicide rate of any doctor profession that there is. What do they deal with? Mind-altering drugs all day long. Oh, you have this problem. I'm going to prescribe you this drug, and it's not going to take the demons away. It's not going to do that. You're trying to do something that only Jesus Christ himself can do. Okay? And you can't do it. You cannot drug your body into good health. It's impossible. Let's go further. The psychology and psychiatry says trying to get you to either live in agreement. This is what psychology and psychiatry try to do. They try to get you to either live in agreement with the demons that are inside you, or they try to get you to overcome the demons in you and the more stronger demons. That is what those exceedingly powerful antipsychotic drugs are for, to get bigger and badder demons to suppress your lesser demons. It's an interesting way of looking at things, but there's a lot of validity to what they're saying because you're dealing with demonic problems, and you're doing it through mind-altering drugs or pharmakia. How does that make sense from a biblical standpoint? I can't see it. Let me tell you, if you were not crazy before you took that stuff, you'd be crazy afterwards, because the demons that are in those antipsychotic drugs attract and will make it so. In other words, they open doorways just like all mind-altering drugs do. Again, you take these drugs, these pharmakia, these mind-altering ones in particular, you're going to open doorways, and you're going to have to deal with worse things. Now, you may feel better for a time. Okay? The bigger demons come into you, and they suppress the littler ones that were giving you problems, and you feel better for a time. But then the bill comes due, and these more powerful demons start to manifest inside you, and now you've got a bigger problem than you ever had them before you started. Okay? Then you have to take more of the same drug to keep suppressing it, or alter prescriptions, or, it never ends. They all have side effects to boot. But you know how many people in the churches are on these types of drugs? And they think nothing of it? And their pastor says nothing about it? As though, oh, she needs her medications. I don't recall in Jesus' time, or when the apostles were around, or even in the Old Testament, where it ever says, yes, thou shalt take thy meds to make thee well. This is what will heal thy mind. I'm sorry, I don't see that anywhere in the Bible. I don't see any biblical precedence for it. A lot of times people say, yeah, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I immediately think, is there any biblical precedence we see? Is there any biblical precedence where we could go in the New Testament and say, yeah, you know what? They were doing the same thing. I don't see it.